Greetings, and hello. Welcome to this broadcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, would you please let me know whether you can see and hear clearly? Just to ensure that the audio and the video are fine. This is, or continues to be, a very trying time for us as Guyanese. A very testing period. One that's testing the patience of many. One that's testing the self-control of many others. And one that's testing the ability of some to endure through that which appears to be an impossible task. I bid you all shalom if you're saints, which speaks of that peace that we have that goes beyond understanding. Thank you for the feedback. It's clear? Excellent. Well, of course, if you don't mind, would you be kind enough to share the broadcast with someone who is not normally live with us or others who don't normally get notifications? I promise that we'll have a very candid conversation tonight because it's necessary. It's most critical for us to talk because I understand that at this time we need focused voices, focused minds, independent thinking. This is not the time for persons to be weak, to be fragile, though you may be tempted to be. It is my responsibility to encourage you to not lose focus, to not lose heart. If you're a saint, Yahweh is still our shield and defense. If you're not a saint, the courage of being a human being who understands rights can still keep you. Greetings to all of you. Tonight's broadcast may even be quite sobering for some of you because this is a very heartfelt, candid, heart-to-heart conversation that I like to have with you. I am observing the course of action that the government is taking. And as you can see on many instances, in many cases, it is not difficult to read the strategy of these people. So we must be able to withstand with wisdom, with tenacity, and with patience. As I say to you, I don't normally ask you to share broadcasts, but please do so in this case because it's needed. Some people need to hear this. Some persons are losing their cool, as we say here in Guyana, and you cannot afford to do that. There are many things for us to discuss, including some recent developments, which includes of course, the expected, nonsensical, irrational, ill-informed words of the Minister of Education, who finds herself, whether inadvertently or deliberately, in the mix of a crisis that she's totally obviously incapable of speaking to with any degree of confidence earning from the citizenry. Thank you for sharing the broadcast. The road ahead. What lies ahead? What are the potentials that lie ahead for Guyana? I will share with you the stark, harsh, crude realities that lie ahead. But I will also share with you the hopeful potentials that lie ahead. And this falls squarely on the government and what they want their legacy to be after they claim, which is a setup by them for themselves anyway, that they are caring, that they are for the people, that Granger and Apnu ALC did people so badly they're now here to show how much they care, and that they're all about democracy, which means people govern, the will of the people govern the nation. The PPP Civic never realized at the administrative level that those words will come back today to haunt them. There's a let me begin with the harsh reality, then hopefully the hope and the sensible path will also be presented. The harsh reality and the stark reality that faces us is that we have got persons who lead this nation, not all of the ministers in government, not all of those in the People Pacific administration. I'm saying to you because I know this for a fact. There are a few members of the People Pacific administration. Somebody's saying they want to know what happened to the rest of the pastors. I'll share with that too. You need to know what happened to them because I know what happened to them. But there's a group in the People Pacific administration who are making not decisions, but who are obeying instructions. There's a difference. They are not making decisions. They have to obey instructions to fit in a particular line of favor with those who got them into power. It is obvious. And if Sarah Ann Lynch, and I'll call her name early in this broadcast, if the US ambassador were against forced vaccinations, Irfan Ali wouldn't even try what he tried. Jagger wouldn't say what he said. Frank Anthony would not have the words to say what he's saying, which actually make no sense scientifically. None of them, Mark Phillips, worse yet, they would be incapable of doing what they're doing to Guyanese. But the fact that Sarah Ann Lynch is so quiet and is an active participant in providing through COVAX and all the rest of it, vaccines to be given to us at all costs, and she knows what's happening in Guyana. She can see what's happening in the health field, in the health sector, because she is informed on a daily basis. She knows exactly what is happening, actually more than most Guyanese do. But she would not stop it. She would not attempt to interfere with it. Because it's a part of an agenda. The World Health Organization and others have agreed that 40% at least of the world's population must be vaccinated by the end of this year. And by 2022, you should have at least 60% of the world's population vaccinated. With that order being given, and with that agreement being made, if persons are not willingly taking the vaccines, as they call them vaccines, then they shall proceed in nations that are weak to force people. You will see what happens in the US with what they're trying. Since most Guyanese are so guided by the USAs and New York, which you all call the USA, by the way, New York is a city and a state. So, because it happened in New York, you believe it's supposed to happen in Guyana. And in your view, you don't recognize that even the businessmen in the USA and in New York, for example, are headed to the court. Because the US has a system where the citizens can approach the court for relief for any matter. Guyana has a system where the court at times behaves as though it is our adversary. Do you hear the difference? All you Guyanese like talk about happening in New York. But let me tell you about New York. In the USA, persons can move to the court at any time for anything that bothers them, especially when it speaks to their civil liberties. And the elected officials in the US know that if you provoke people and you push them too hard, they move to the court, they move to the street. They don't have to have permission to protest in the USA. They have permission to use a loud hailer in the USA. So since you want to talk about the USA, let's talk about the USA. And at the same time, the USA is not even taking the risk to tell people that if you're going to be tested, you have to pay for it every week. You wouldn't try that. They wouldn't even risk that with certain people. But the weaker nations, Guyana being one of them, sadly so, in their eyes, are the perfect places to attain numbers to reach the 60% global population vaccination rate. So Africa, for example, Nigeria has 1.7 persons vaccinated, or just about 2 or 1.7 per 100. They're 2% vaccination rate. Nigeria, which is known for herbal treatment and so on, the World Health Organization and others are saying, and the World Bank, by the way, is funding research for vaccines in Africa. The World Bank is giving $20 billion to South Africa for them to manufacture vaccines for Africa, because Nigeria is too far behind. Do you see? Do you get the picture yet? That's what the World Bank is doing. They are funding. So the road ahead is not one that is local in terms of your battle. It is global in terms of your battle. And if you cannot find strong local or national leaders in this country, you are finished from their end. But you're not finished from an independent thinker's end. Nigeria is known, I say again, Africa, they know about herbal treatment. But the World Bank is not for herbal treatment. The World Bank has pledged $20 billion for vaccines to be produced in Africa, because, of course, Africans don't trust the white man vaccine. So they decide, all right then, you don't trust our vaccines, we pay you $20 billion to get vaccines, so you're going to just shoot it in yourself. Obviously, it has to be made with the same material. It has to meet strict guidelines. So they're trying a new strategy. Pump money into South Africa, which is already destabilized in any case. Then have Africans encourage Africans, listen to the tone here, Africans encourage Africans to be vaccinated, to forget your herbal treatments, forget your natural treatments, forget that which has taken you centuries through many plagues, many disasters. Forget that. Let the money get to your head and convince each other that what the World Bank and what the developed nations want for you are good enough and you should take it. The Caribbean doesn't have $20 billion given to it for research into anything. The Caribbean has $0 given to it for research. What they have would be donations of vaccines. Do you get it yet? The Caribbean is given vaccines. You can't research anything, you cannot question anything, you cannot discover anything. What you do is you receive a gift, which is a chemical, and you inject people, whether they want it, you force them to get it at all costs because you have to meet a quota. That's the road on which we're walking. And that's why I say to you that you have to prepare for a very tough path ahead of you. Because if your mind is on getting a job and protecting your employment, you are already enslaved. Guyana, somebody says there's a noise in my background. Just lower the fan for me, please, baby. Is there anybody else having a noise from the background? It's hot. That's fine. Is it better? Because they don't want you to be distracted. Unless you can see I'm not in my normal place for broadcast, but that's fine. Okay. Okay, so it's fine? Okay, good. Now, when you do not have the courage to stand against a plan that goes beyond the politicians, you're in trouble. You are a slave to a system that knows one thing. It is called desperation. When you are desperate, when you prove to be a desperate individual, where you give up your right to humanity, to regard for your body, when you release the right, you relinquish the right to protect the only thing you have true power over, which is yourself and your body. Once you do that, you become a slave again. I have repeated this, and I promise you that somebody in the rebroadcast is going to have, without a modicum, without an iota, without the smallest degree of common sense, they're going to say that I'm telling people that they must not be vaccinated, because that's a narrative that is global in terms of the fight, where they're saying that you must fall into two categories: vaccinated, unvaccinated. If you're vaccinated, you're wise, and according to Priya you are responsible. If you're unvaccinated, then you are unwise, and according to Priya you are irresponsible. You are not a responsible citizen. You're not a world citizen. You're not one who behaves as if you are classy. So there are people in our society who are being cultured into thinking that if I'm to be thought of as a sophisticated mind, and watch it, QC, I'm talking here from now, creme de la creme, watch it, because I know y'all, they're going to try their best to make it appear as if the model school for Guyana is having no issue with vaccinating children with a vaccine that is strictly issued under the emergency use authorization, that protocol. No, it would be the intelligent students of Queen's College have no issue taking vaccines, because remember, if the 1% of smart people in the country in QC, the children, can take a vaccine, then why can't the others in the little community schools take it? Because QC is demonstrating to you that you're smart. I don't buy that garbage. What you are creating is an elitist society. And if you, as a parent, buy into that concept, and you teach your child that they are more important and superior than another human being, you are a disaster waiting to happen. And you are not anyone who's worthy of regard, honor, or respect from me. My child is considered to be among the elites in reference to intelligence in Guyana. She's not allowed to behave as if she is. And she would not be allowed to behave as though she is. On the contrary, she understands the bigger picture. So even at the school level, they are now having a different indoctrination for the road ahead, where our young children will be made to think that if they don't take a vaccine, they're not as smart as another child. If they don't take a vaccine, then they're not as brave as another child. If they don't take a vaccine, then they're not as significant as another child. And they're not worthy of certain degrees of respect and honor. I'm appealing to you in Guyana, in the Caribbean, and any other parts of the world. Be watchful. Be watchful. As they say, be woke. Right before your eyes is a society being created within your nation to appease people who do not live in your nation. For the sake of those of you who are not trained in science, you trained in propaganda, you trained in just watching YouTube videos and listening to some doctrine. If you're in favor of it, then you take it. And you argue some nonsensical point, I'll ask you a few questions that Frank Anthony will never answer me. Never. Never in his life will Frank Anthony take the risk to have an engagement with me on a public platform. And I can understand why he wouldn't do it. Somebody say First Assembly of God is talking about musical interludes and Olympics. I would not doubt. I wouldn't put that beyond them. Because it's an elitist society. That's how people process. If you are a sophisticated pastor if you can tell the church to take vaccines, because Priya and others hinted at that. Churches, if you're responsible, you preachers, you'll tell people to take the vaccine when they come Sunday morning. She didn't talk about the temple. She went to the church. And people go to pray at church on Sunday. She didn't talk about the temple and the mosque. She was specific. When you go to pray at church on Sunday, if you're responsible, you pastors should have people taking vaccines. I hear very clearly what people have to say. Because they know that there's a preacher in Guyana who's speaking to them in this manner. So they can appeal to say, well, listen, don't follow Nigel London's path. You're sophisticated. You're not like him. So when people go to church to pray on Sunday, ensure they're vaccinated. By the way, that's a hint. You do not have, and for all of you who are possibly arguing or seeking to build a platform, as I saw somebody speak today about the pandemic of the unvaccinated. So I'll ask you all brilliant ones who want to follow Fauci's and those people's foolishness to answer me. First of all, can you identify, if ever, please listen to my question, somebody says my pastor asks members to take the vaccine and preach about the vaccine before you preach the word of God. There you go. Can you name one instant, just one, in which a vaccine put into your shoulder or your butt, wherever they put it, or your thigh, wherever they give you the vaccine, any vaccine whatsoever, flu shot, or anything else for a respiratory ailment, which would be things like the flu and the cold I'm talking specifically to here, a viral infection of your respiratory system, which would cover the flu and certain colds. Can you name one vaccine that prevents it in reference to spreading to another person? Can you, Frank Anthony, or anybody in the broadcast, name one? Well, let me simplify it for you then. If you ever get a vaccine shot for the flu season, you get a shot for that season. Do you have to return whenever the flu season comes again to take another shot for the other flu season? Do they say to you that you should come for the seasonal flu vaccines? Am I right? Good. Exactly. So whenever the flu season comes, they advertise, come to get a shot because flu season here again. You know why? Because you cannot ever have a vaccine, one, that caters to the coronavirus family across the board. It is impossible. Oh, an even simpler question, and maybe my baby's here watching me this way, I'm looking at her all the time and smiling. Is there a cure, a vaccine for the common cold? Is there? Do people catch cold all the time? From the time your baby, you start growing and stuff like that, do you not have cold throughout your lifetime, or most people? Okay. Isn't the common, listen to the name of it, common cold in the environment all the time? There are thousands of strains of it, and they all belong, most of them belong to the corona family, by the way. Okay. So you may not, some of you are getting my point already. And the point has been scientifically proven, but Frank Anthony is not speaking about it. Mahendra Karpin is not talking about it. Priya Manikchand definitely cannot speak to it because she's incapable of speaking anything scientifically sound. There is no cure for the virus that causes colds. Why? Somebody said it. There was no flu season last year. You realize that? That they advertise, if you have these symptoms, it's the common flu. If you have these symptoms, it's corona. But yet, we didn't hear about millions of people contracting the common flu. It was just corona last year, nothing else. There was nothing else on the planet that bothered anybody apart from coronavirus. The common flu just disappeared. So, the science is there. The science is there that these viruses, and scientists who are virologists have said it, they are very, very, very smart in how they function. And you cannot have any vaccine to eliminate it, because naturally, your body has the ability to develop what is more potent than any vaccine. Listen to this. To prevent your dying, unless you're extremely weak. Colds hardly kill people in a pandemic context. And the reason why many of your pastors can't talk to you is because your pastors, and this is just a fact, y'all don't be embarrassed about it. I'm telling you because I've dealt with them extensively. Most of you say pastors, preachers, apostle, they call them, prophet, pastor, prophet, bishop, right reverend, doctor, general, and all them. Most of them have a common story that I don't have. And that common story is that many of them are high school dropouts, so they testify, I never went to school, I never went to college, and that's a boast for them. I never went far in school, the Lord saved me, and the Lord taught me to read, and so I can preach. When you the kind of people, those kinds of people, they advertise ignorance as if it's something that's credible or commendable. I was trained. I went to school. I have a tertiary qualification in science. I do not have a story of ignorance and illiteracy. Most of the preachers I've encountered cannot function outside of a church environment. They shall fail miserably, hence they live in the pulpit, because they cannot earn a living outside of it. They are not certified, they're not qualified. They always have a bad boy testimony. I used to shoot people, I used to steal, they always have something. I used to just smoke. Oh, they like this one. I was on drugs and the Lord saved me. That's their story. That sells. I was a gang member and the Lord saved me. I was gang banging and the Lord saved me. I don't have your story. And so I can speak to things of this nature without being intimidated by DR before people's name or MD before people's name. It doesn't bother me. Because given what I'm seeing in Guyana, at certain levels, MD is, in my eyes, translated to mad donkeys. Because their reasoning goes beyond science. So there's a new description. MD, in many cases in this country, means mad donkeys. Because it takes a mad, crazy person, and a donkey is somebody who's overly stupid, to look at science square in the face and say, I will disregard what is scientific and speak to that which is popular. I'll just echo what somebody says, those scientists before me. The road ahead is not a road of science. It's a road of strategy, where people systematically get you to do things that break your right to be human and strong. Violate it. Terminate it. And in any other pandemic, this is setting precedents. This is laying the groundwork for mass or global obedience. This is setting the pace for mass or global obedience. You cannot survive this environment. And I'll speak to white people who are talking about getting on the street and fighting. I'll speak to you as I promised I would tonight. Hopefully you'll hear me. If you don't, then you can do what you want to do. If you're an individual who, as the minister he said he is, or they call him, of health, would have said that people are going and they're taking the vaccines. He's now sitting in his office with people like the pensioner I served you today, and I know many pensioners who have suffered that same old man's fate. They don't ask him anything. They simply tell you that you have to go get a vaccine, and that's the end of the matter. I am seeing people being stripped of their right to eat. Pensioners who've worked for the years, they're now retired. They can't get a pension in their money, $20,000 in their hand or $25,000 in their hand, when they are contributors in the economy because they didn't do what some minister said. Let me share this with you. If you're a person who the minister could look at and say, hey, these people ran and took the vaccine, and he said it, they're taking the vaccines, and what's the normal term? And we have more than enough for everybody, so go take a vaccine. Everybody take the vaccine. If you're the kind of person who runs to take a vaccine under these conditions, let me tell you what happens to you. You are deemed in the eyes of those who have military support and police support. If not support, police, they can instruct them to do it, and the police would have to act because it's their job, or the police can defect and say, we're not doing this, which I think is a strong thing to do, but I don't think policemen in Guyana have the strength to do it yet. But if you've got a case in which you ran to take a vaccine because you're under pressure, let me share this with you. And don't be heartbroken, I'm just telling you the truth. You are not seen as a person who's strong enough to fight in anything called a civil war in your country. So those who talk about fight, tonight is a night for me to be candid with you, as I said, and straightforward. If you bow to the pressure of simply being forced to take a vaccine, or you can't feed your children, you can't fight a battle. Soldiers are trained for warfare. You are trained for survival, which is why you take a vaccine under pressure. Don't talk about fighting anybody. If you can't get up from a desk or an office or a cubicle, wherever you are, and walk out to that place because you upset they're forcing you to take a vaccine, how are you standing in the street to fight for 2 years or a year? Let's not talk about that, because you're not ready for it. I know the emotions get the better of some of you all and you're ready to fight because you're upset, but this is my hope, that you have the reality check and you think and focus, refocus. The persons who are goading you and encouraging you to do things who they'll never be seen because they don't have listen to me, they do not even have a Facebook profile with a photograph. Sounds simple. I have my photograph. You know why? Because I don't have to hide behind some flower or a rose like some grown men I see doing. I don't hide behind anything. I show you who I am. So there are many of you all who have this talk that you want to be so tough because typing is easy. But people can't even see your profile. Your profile is a motorcycle or some car or some one eye, and you tell me you want to fight somebody. Come on. If you are incapable of even having your face seen on social media, who are you fighting? What courage you have? You're a social media soldier, that's what you are. You are a Facebook warrior. You're not a person who has courage to fight anybody, and that's just the truth. And I would never go to battle with somebody who can't show their face on social media and who can't make themselves known when they want to say certain things about the government. I can't deal with you. You're too weak for anything called a fight. So don't come talking to me about we have to fight. You don't have to do anything. You go and fight and show us how it's done, because you don't have the courage to even make your face known. If you have to create a fake profile to say that you want to attack the government, you're not ready for battle. You're a social media soldier. And you can build a social media army and you fight there. This is not how you deal with warfare. This is not how you deal with civil resistance. You don't know how to deal with it. And I will not be on social media teaching you how to do it either. But I'm telling you, this is not how you do it. That is why when some of you speak with all the passion you're doing, you get upset and you say, let's go and fight, I don't pay much attention to you because I know you're not capable of doing it. You don't have the strength to do it. You are angry. You don't like what's happening, but you don't have the courage to do it. Now I tell you, go put up your photograph on Facebook. I'm not saying that to you. I'm just telling you that if you don't have the courage to be known, me, wherever I go in this country, police officers and everybody else, military people know me. Politicians know me by just name, face, everything. They monitor my page. Good night, by the way, officers and those with intelligence. They monitor my broadcast. What's the big deal? I don't have to be scared and create some fake account somewhere. Why? Because I understand that if what I'm doing is right, I have no reason to fear anybody. But can you imagine that somebody who's trained to fight with weapons, with guns and AK-47s and all kinds of rifles, coming up against you could fight with the keyboard? You honestly believe that the fight makes sense? So let's not do it. Let's not talk about it. Because the road ahead, and we'd get to the plans for you, but the road ahead is not one in which there should be multiple casualties because people got emotionally upset without being focused on what matters and how to win. The politicians in Guyana, not all of them, but most of them, on both sides of the aisle, have been controlled and are being controlled by the same set of people. Jaiwan, by the same set of people. Jaiwan says he's hurt. The same set of some of you have to wake up and see what's happening before you. The same set of people who control the Pacific control APNU FC is the same person. And what is the most disgusting, sickening, and stupid thing that I'm seeing in our country is that, can you imagine politicians can fall to being told that your visa will be revoked? Now, if you've got people who are leading you on both sides of the aisle, let's talk about APNU FC, and they are afraid to lose a visa to the US, to enter the US. Now you tell me how these people could stand up to diplomatic pressure. Come on now, man. Let's be serious. Let's have this honest, straightforward. And that's why I'm not trying to scream tonight. I don't normally try to scream. I am very passionate, but I'm trying to restrain myself as much as I can. Because some of you can't relate to my being a very tough person, apparently, which is not my nature, by the way. But let's have this conversation. If APNU AFC were threatened that their visas and that of their relatives would be revoked, and that allowed them to cripple, to crumble, to cower, to kowtow, you tell me how these people can stand to a global agenda to vaccinate at least 5 to 6 billion people. 5 billion people. Can you fathom? Can you put your mind around dealing with politicians that are that weak? That is why they say, and you saw them advertise as of January or whenever, you have to, or October, you have to have a vaccine to access the embassy for your visa. They know it, and Guyanese will go like crazy to get it, because there's something called a lure or a pull, a demographic pull. It's created by a system of deception. The US is one of the most heavily indebted nations in the world, but they sell an idea as though they're wealthy and they're not in trouble. And they may likely end up in another Afghan war, which would put them into trillions of dollars of debt that Americans will have to pay, but other nations will have to fund as well. So as a result of that, what about the protesters? They were on bail, Khalid. That's it. They got bail because it's a bailable offense. And maybe they'll be put before the court. I doubt they would. But that's it. So, if you're afraid to lose a visa as a politician, I can't look to you for leadership. I haven't been looking to you for leadership in the first place. I've been saying you should speak to your people, not for me. But you've heard me say it, because I'm monitored by many people. I don't care about any visa. Blacklist me if you want. When you have somebody of that nature and that mindset, as I'm seeing somebody else in this broadcast, then you can begin to be qualified to deal with these kind of people. But if you're scared that your cousin's visa get taken, or your daughter's visa get taken, or your daughter in the States, in the USA, their citizenship is revoked, so you have to protect them by walking out of office, you're not ready to lead anybody. You're an opportunist in office. That's all you are. And that's what most of our politicians are in Guyana. Opportunists in office. The road ahead for us includes potentially the government, the PPP civic administration, deliberately trying or attempting to provoke civil unrest. Potentially. I hope that's not the case. Potentially. And if there is civil unrest, then you, by law, can lose the right to even go on the street. So if it can be provoked and it can be triggered, then you activate the army. You are prohibited from having certain freedoms, because there's now a situation of unrest in the nation and the government can proclaim it. They have then to quell the situation, and in order to restore order, then you have to stay in your house. That is a potential plan that lies ahead, because the things that are being done, like to these old people, martial law, the person called it right. You don't want to see people react to that, because people are extremely angry. And if a government does things to provoke people, there's a plan behind the provocation. But here's another reality for you. If a state of emergency is declared, the members of parliament still receive tax-free, or whatever it is, their salary. The ministers in government still receive the same salary that Granger raised, and the PP Civic never turned back, never reversed it. So they still receive this chunk, $800,000 whatever per month. They still get that. The president still receives whatever $1 or $2 million per month, tax-free, with all expenses paid in his house. Bara Jagger still receives a pension as a former president. 1 point whatever million dollars per 1.5, 1.6 million dollars per month. Are you getting the drift yet? If a state of emergency is declared, the politicians in your country, they don't lose their salary. And those who tell you come to the street and do this and do that, they're still paid. Even APNU politicians, they still receive a salary. There's an evil system of governance in Guyana that is not designed for the citizens to win. Now let's get deeper into the heart-to-heart conversation. The system of governance in this country was never designed for citizens to win. It was designed for citizens to obey. This is never about your winning. Guyana's political culture, demonstrated by both sides of this fence, was never about your being equal to politicians in terms of your lifestyle. Never. Never. And those of you who've committed your strength, your life, and your time to dying for these people and walking behind them, you are going to be, as you are right now, highly disappointed, because the culture was never designed for you to thrive in it. You will never hear a minister in the PP Civic administration say they don't want a salary because they don't like how things are going in the country. You'll never hear an APNU FC member of parliament say they're not going to take a salary because they don't like how things are going. You will not hear it. Ahead of you lies a possibility of provocation, where a political group, a set of them in a party, deliberately do things to push you over the edge so they can then have a military, a state of emergency, a martial law situation where the population is further beaten. How do you overcome that strategy? How do you cause their plan to fail? You cause their plan to fail by something called industrial action. That's where the unions make us strong come in. Because the unions know, and you ask any trade unionist, they understand how to deal with governments. And one of the most effective, significant, and powerful ways to deal with any government that has a structure like Guyana's is industrial action. It shuts a system down. So civil unrest is not the way forward. Industrial action is the way forward, where you do not have to raise weapons, you drop tools. I say it to you again. You do not have to raise weapons, you simply drop tools. You do not work. But there is an apparent trap, because politicians understand how to deal with unions. So if, for example, like I'm told one of them, it's in the news, was given, I think Banks or one of those unions, they were given an X-trail by the managing director of Banks ZH. That is certainly a conflict of interest. If a union president who represents workers in a union receives a gift from the company, a car, come on. What do you think? What do you think will happen? Just think about it for a second. If any government can infiltrate the leadership of a union. I'm seeing some great news. It's working. I'm telling you all. I'll share with you later. So, if any government or private entity can infiltrate a union with gifts and perks, then the concept of civil unrest, the principle of civil unrest, of industrial action, the strength of industrial action is eliminated, severely depleted. And when we have a country like Guyana that is being run by a handout system, the workers have to now be strong enough, because there's another way around this, where the workers can then demand that the union act on their behalf. Because you have a right to take a union to court if you don't know, if they don't act in your interest. You can file an action as a class, a group of people, to say your union is not representing you. And if they collect your dues, it's a contract. They are paid, it's deducted from your salary, they have to defend you. So I am seeing that our nation is finding itself in a serious web of deception, where persons can't act according to their portfolio because they're controlled by something else and someone else. What lies ahead? I know I speak to my child's situation for sure, and Priya Manik Chan and the country. What lies ahead for our school children? Nursery through grade 6, grade 7, which is Form 1, through grade 11, which is Form 6. What lies ahead for our children? Grade 11 is Form 5, grade 12 is Form 6. What lies ahead for our children? Our children in Guyana are under the leadership, the guidance, the directive of a minister of education who, whenever in this situation, as today, I'll address today's situation. When she spoke, I was in attendance. I listened on social media to the press conference, because I need to hear what was the plan going forward for school to be reopened. And I shall address Priya Manik Chan's utterances as I would say to you that if any public official, called a politician or a minister in government, good night, Daisy, if you seek to insult me as a father and as a citizen, I shall make it known to you that you have done that which is disrespectful. Priya Manik Chan, and I'm simply saying what she said, though I may paraphrase, I'm saying what she said. Is of the view, and this is the first one I'll speak to parents being considered illiterate in a minute, but the first part, she has been a proponent for vaccination, and she obviously supports mandatory vaccination. I told you all months ago, before any mandating was begun, I told you all, Priya said, because I know her style, Priya went and quoted what happened in St. Vincent and said, well, in St. Vincent, they're telling teachers that if you're not vaccinated, you can't come to school. Remember that? And I told you, if Priya says that, I promise you it will happen, because that's her nature. She will say things and then say, well, I'm not saying it will happen here, but it may come to that. And it came to that, because she sits in certain circles and knows exactly what's being said. So Priya Manik Chan said then that they're not going to force anybody, but it's just teachers won't be forced to be vaccinated, but it's happening in St. Vincent. If you don't come to work, then you can't be vaccinated. So it may come to Guyana. We're not there yet. Those are her words. Well, we are there now. And Priya Manichan is saying that parents must be vaccinated. Students ages 16 or 12 to 16 should be vaccinated too. And that it is irresponsible of me, because I'm not vaccinated, as a parent, to not be vaccinated if I have a child to go to school. Because Priya Manichan, who is not a scientist by nature, said that if my child should go to school and is infected or causes someone to be infected, that would only happen because the parent is unvaccinated. Now, I have long lost any expectation and any hope in the Minister of Education saying that which I can have some degree of confidence in terms of sense and wisdom. And I'm saying as a parent, I don't look to her for directions and statements that make sense, because I'm scientifically trained and she's not. But when she says she's quoting scientists and advisors and the Minister of Health, it got my attention, because she isn't saying this according to her. She's not making a statement out of her intellect. She's making a statement based on advice. So I will address Frank Anthony. He can correct me if he wants to, but I doubt he can. So Priya Manichan is saying that if my child goes to school and somebody's infected, that means that it only happened because the parent in the house is unvaccinated. Now let me go to Priya Manichan's statement and to what the Center for Disease Control, because most of you here CDC don't know what it is. The Center for Disease Control is not in Guyana. It's in the USA. Guyana has an entity in the Ministry of Health that is responsible for this kind of for infections. We have an infectious disease center. We have got doctors who are supposed to be trained in this area. And I don't know when any doctor in this field could make such a stupid statement to advise Priya Manichan. But the researchers who are qualified to research into this have clearly stated that people who, with this Delta variant, as they call it, who are vaccinated and unvaccinated, carry the same, just about equal viral loads in their nasal cavity. Both the vaccinated and unvaccinated with the Delta variant, that they say, Frank said would come and it's already here anyway, said that you carry, both people carry the same load. Anthony Fauci, as dishonest as he is, had to admit, because the evidence was there, you couldn't deny it, that vaccinated people and unvaccinated people can contract and spread the virus. The Minister of Education, has today said that if a child goes to school and that child causes another child to be infected, the only source of the result or the cause of it is an unvaccinated parent who is irresponsible. Now, can you tell me how could a Minister of Health and a Minister of Education be so shallow when you've got education science supervisors? I was one. I was an education as a subject specialist, we called. I was a part of the CIMAT team, Curriculum, Instruction, Materials and Assessment team. Listen to me, madam. I am one who helped to write the National Science Curriculum, and you cannot remotely begin to tell me that your statement makes a modicum of sense. How can you make such a ludicrous, stupid statement in your Minister of Education? How do you do these things? I don't understand. They need to take you off of this platform, give you a few days off, because you're not doing well for the PP Civic. You and Frank Anthony need to take about 6 months leave. Because it doesn't seem as if the two of you have any handle on what is actually scientific in nature. And if you want to silence me, you shouldn't be talking. If you do not know Madam Manichan, you can be carrying a Delta variant in your nostril tonight, right now. And you, because of what you have, you can transmit it to somebody else. That is why, madam, although nurses in the USA many of them are fully vaccinated, especially in the homes for the geriatrics, the elderly people, let me inform you, madam, in those homes, those convalescent homes and so on, they are tested every week, although they are fully vaccinated. Why do you think so, madam smart Manichan? Why? This is disgusting. I can't believe I'm saying this to an education minister. Why are nurses in the USA that y'all look to all the time as the empire of intelligence? Why? Why are nurses being tested? And I have family who are nurses. Why are they tested although they are fully vaccinated? Since your reasoning says that the only way my child can spread a virus in the school is if I'm unvaccinated. Madam Manichan, I'm honestly trying my best not to say things to you that would deem a personal attack and insulting. But you're pushing me because I can't believe that as a Minister of Education you're going to try to attack me as a parent with such stupid statements. Unfounded, nonsensical, and they are the epitome of asininity. You make a child who has never been to school for a year look like a genius. And you said that because children were not having contact in a school environment, in a classroom, they are not learning and they would lose most of the things they learned. Well, you must have not had contact for quite a while, because this image you're making doesn't speak to anything that's scientific. What are you, how could you as a Minister of Education make such a statement that is unfounded, lacks any scientific merit, is today seen as one of the most erroneous and stupid things to say? When they're warning people who are fully vaccinated to wear a mask because they can still contract and spread the disease. The disease is not spread by unvaccinated people, madam, because Mahendra Karpan, your boy, who you brought to speak to me as a parent on a platform, said that if you're vaccinated, the time the virus spends in your system is about 3 days or so, and if you're unvaccinated, about 7 or whatever days. So he's saying that the people with the virus in your system, and another doctor told me that, it lasts a shorter time. So wait, if the virus could be in my system, or in my cavities and so on, for 3 days, can I infect somebody over 3 days? Come on. And if you do not know, a vaccinated child could come to a house and infect a fully vaccinated parent too, because it's something called breakthrough infections that you don't seem to know about. And what they'll tell you is that it is not on a large scale. It is not really, it doesn't happen a lot. So even if it is minimal, is it not critical? Because I'm speaking to the science of what you're saying. 2 fully vaccinated people can cause each other to be infected and they can get sick and die. It is called a breakthrough infection. Now, you obviously pre-managed, I don't know about that either. Because I understand what you taught. You taught that that which happens on a minimal scale is apparently non-existent. So that's what you and Frank Anthony are obviously process. That because very few people die after taking the vaccine, it's safe. You see your reason? Because you didn't die after taking it, it's safe. Because your cousin didn't die, it's safe. But if the neighbor dies, then it's still safe. And you sold that narrative because you want teachers to be vaccinated. You said it, that parents must be vaccinated. So if teachers and parents are vaccinated, I told you this before, Madam Priya Manik Chan, let's go to the school environment. Herd immunity is arrived at through a certain percentage of a population being immune to a disease. Madam Priya, Mr. Frank, herd immunity has nothing to do with necessarily vaccinating a population. It has to do with the population developing an immunity to a disease. It is not only done by vaccination. It happens by an immune system in an individual reacting, developing the ability to discern what the virus or a disease is, attack it. Antibodies are produced, T cells and everything else. They know, okay, anything like this in the future comes back, we can fight it. That's how immunity is arrived at in the population. But you and Frank Anthony have got this notion that only vaccination produces immunity, which is actually against science and it's actually stupid. Because before the vaccines were had, Frank and Barrett said they weren't pushing for this. This country doesn't have to be closed. Have you forgotten that in the deadliest month since the pandemic has hit, as they call a pandemic, the deadliest month was June. 99 people died in June. 99 people haven't died in August. And when 99 Guyanese died and 3,600 plus Guyanese were infected, Frank had the curfew at 10:30 at night. He didn't extend it back to 6 p.m. in the afternoon or 4 o'clock and say, oh, shut the country down, because Jagdeo said people die anyway. He was speaking to herd immunity. Of course, Jagdeo doesn't have the terminology. He's an economist. I don't blame him. He's not a scientist. He doesn't try to be one. But you apparently want to be scientist, Priya. Now, how could you have a fight with doctors and nurses who are taught these things? Like Dr. Ford and those people. They are taught these things. They were trained. Some of them in Cuba. They were trained in these things. And you come in with whatever qualifications you have. Definitely not scientific. To try to teach people science. The reason why Jagdeo said the country doesn't have to be shut down, people die, because you're speaking to herd immunity. There were no vaccines, but he understood, maybe Frank told him, about herd immunity. They were following Switzerland, certain other countries that were leaving the country, I think Sweden or whatever it is. Oh, leave the country open, people die, the healthy ones are going to live, so we'll be fine after a while. That's herd immunity. That's a raw definition of herd immunity. Now you saying to me that the only way that you can attain immunity is by vaccination, which does not prevent infection. So let me go to the other question for you all, and I'm dealing with Priya and the school system here. Are you aware that Pfizer, that you say and the world says is now fully approved, it's now removed from the emergency authorized use protocol and it's gone into being fully approved? Are you aware that those people have said that the intention originally was for the vaccine to prevent infections? But Pfizer has admitted, because they will have to do that now, that the vaccine does not prevent infection. It's a vaccine that's geared to prevent the severity of an infection. Y'all cannot be this slow and leading a country. It's becoming wearying and annoying. Pfizer has made it clear that the vaccine, the initial intent, because they're trying to beat this COVID, this corona's family of viruses, they're trying to find something that can overcome this hurdle where they cannot totally eliminate the effect of the respiratory tract infections. They can't beat it. They're trying their best. That's why common colds remain common cold. That's why the seasonal flu comes every season. They cannot eradicate it. So they're trying now to find something that can eradicate this once and for all. What they tried? Okay, they developed the Pfizer vaccine. What happened though? The problem with the Pfizer vaccine, as I said it, the intention was to prevent infection. But now they realize that it is not doing that. They therefore said it is not preventing an infection. It is limiting the effect of the infection. Now, how much more daft can you be as a leader of our children to tell them that a vaccine that the manufacturer said doesn't prevent infection, you say that if a child is infected, it's because the parent is unvaccinated, when the vaccine doesn't prevent infection? Frank Anthony is admitting that it's about keeping the hospital, the healthcare system from being overrun. You know why? Because the infection is not the issue. It is the effect of the infection that they're trying to avoid. But you, Madam Minister of Health, you before the media, trying to talk as if you're so smart in this area, and you want to insult us as parents, not knowing that some of us are scientists by nature. And I'll talk to you about the part we said that all of us are treated as though we're illiterate in a minute. So if you are saying, and Frank Anthony, well, you don't say it, Frank Anthony said it, that the healthcare system will be overrun by the Delta variant, get vaccinated. He's not saying that if you're vaccinated, you will not be infected. He's saying that you'll not be hospitalized and you wouldn't die. That's his bet. Madam, do you know what it means? Madam Priya? Pri, as I call you? Pri? He's saying to you then, your own minister is telling you that the vaccine is not about preventing infection. So don't tell parents that vaccine prevents infection. And if a child is infected because the parent is unvaccinated, tell the parents that vaccines may keep them out of hospital. And the vaccine may prevent them from dying if they do not have an adverse reaction to it. But you have another problem, because you all are not seeking as a government to advise people and ensure that the nurses at these stations tell people plainly that if you have any history of ailment, do not rush to go to any vaccination site. But you all just want numbers, you don't want health. If you have got any issue with ailments like high blood pressure, the man today you saw is diabetic, you all saw that I took the time to ask him. I'm not a doctor, but I have sense because I studied and I've learned. You have to ask certain questions. Today I see me follow the World Health Organization protocol. I'm not a doctor, but I read. I read it on a website for everybody to see. I have read what the WHO are saying you must do when you see somebody. Ask the person, do you have any underlying condition? Do you suffer from anything that's even prevalent, not underlying, like diabetes, hypertension, cardiac issues? Do you have any problem like with clotting? Ask a question. And when I asked the question, the senior citizen told me plainly that he suffers from sugar, which is diabetes. Hello? From the time you get that response, you can't tell a man, get vaccinated or get a PCR. He must pay for PCR tests. He's a pensioner. So what is going to happen to our children if a minister of education cannot respect science? And you obviously have lackeys around you in the education department who can't talk for themselves because they have to protect their job, it seems. But I don't have any job to protect with you all. But what do you think will happen to this nation if we have people who are leading our children and they can't speak the truth scientifically? What will happen to our children? I tell you, I repeat, madam, that there is no vaccine today on the market that prevents, in terms of your 8 vaccines you listed, none of them prevents infection. Not one of them. It was never made to do that. And the manufacturers have said it. They've admitted to it. The efficacy is not about the infection. It's about the reaction your body gets to it. So you can carry the virus, and if you can carry any virus, you can also cause another person to be infected by it. Goodness gracious, if I carry virus in my nostrils or in my buccal cavity, my mouth, and I sneeze, madam, if I'm fully vaccinated, I may not be sick, but if I sneeze and the droplets go into another human being, they can become infected, even if they are fully vaccinated. Because I'm telling you that the virus is about The vaccines are not about infection, they're about hospitalization and the sickness, the effect of it, the extent to which you will suffer. The Minister of Education also said, and I heard you, I was driving and that prevented my typing, but I'll tell you now, Madam Manik-Chan, you spoke to the worksheet, somehow you're trying to modify the worksheets to make it really easy for parents. And you had the nerve to say that that is why you are here, which is the Education Ministry, to treat every parent as though every parent of a child in your system, as though they are illiterate. So I was driving and I was trying to make sense of what you were saying, which is always difficult for me to do. But I tried to see if what you were saying is what you were saying. But in your usual way, in thinking that you can just sit there and speak as though you are the most intelligent being in the room and that you have got a handle on the situation, you can just talk and sound impressive. I couldn't figure out what you wanted to say to give you the benefit of the doubt. Because if you're saying the benefit of the doubt, if you're saying, listen, we designed the system of delivery for our children in terms of worksheets, with the thought process being that every parent is illiterate. Have you forgotten that you're a parent? So did your officers design this thing with you in mind? Have you forgotten that your parliamentary colleagues and your ministerial colleagues in the government are parents? So did you design it with the president in mind to say the president's illiterate too? Is that what you're doing? Because you said every parent in Guyana is considered illiterate by you all in the education department. I serve as an education supervisor, and Madam Manik-Chan, we have never in the years of developing the curriculum, never ventured down such an insulting, stupid path. It speaks to your ignorance of your society in which you live. Do you not know how many parents, when they fill a form, they will say the occupation? So how can you have database, which you may not consult with obviously, but we were able to have an understanding of the communities in which we live. What's the average job like? What do people do? What's the normal mode of employment? What's the area of employment? What's the school level? What's the level of intelligence, of qualification? And from that you can determine where the parents stand. Guyana is not a predominantly illiterate society. Maybe you and your family are. Don't bring that to me. I am a university graduate, a trained grade 1, class 1 science, high school science teacher. You've got Marcel Hudson, who's a father, your CEO, and you sitting there with these people and saying that every parent is treated as the illiterate and these fellows don't talk to you. They need money that badly? You feel like you're in some rum shop having a conversation or what? Because I can't believe you say these things to people in your country when your president is a parent. You are a parent. That's a part of I had to pause in this car and say that Priya realized that she's saying something that every parent in this country is treated as though they are illiterate when she's a parent sitting at the table. So they treat you in education department as though you're illiterate too then. So they have to read for you. Because I don't think you understand what illiterate means, madam. Madam Manik-Chan, to be illiterate means you cannot read. Or you may see letters because there are levels of literacy. You can read words, but you cannot comprehend what the words are saying. So who reads for you? Who breaks things down for you in education, Priya? Because you're a parent. So we need to treat you as though you're illiterate. So who breaks things down and simplifies them for you? Because I'm trying to do it and I'm failing, obviously. I'm failing miserably trying to make you literate in science. I failed. And imagine you've got people sitting in that room with you, media personnel and others, feeling so important they could sit with you because they're apparently vaccinated. So they have access to you, and they can sit and hear you give a speech as to what will happen when school reopens. If you're treating every parent as though they are illiterate, you are a parent. I'm reminding you of that. How should we treat you? How should we view you? Further, on this road of ours, where are we headed? Where the nation's being taken? Please type this one word for me. Incompetence. And I'll show you a plan that some of you may not see. Incompetence. If this government knows that the public sector, they said it, is predominantly occupied by people who go to college and university, they go into the public sector. Most employees in the public sector, many of them, have got some high school qualification, college qualification, or university level qualification. Type the word incompetence, please. Thank you. Let me share this with you. If you are in the public sector, it is known that you are competent based on your qualifications. That's why doctors are predominantly in the public sector. And the doctors in the public sector are competent because they had years of training. The nurses are predominantly in the public sector. The nurses have got years of training. So the people in the public sector, the managers, the supervisors, they are all competent because they are trained. Listen to this. The possibility exists that this administration is going to remove, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. So you've got letters being sent all across the country to different public service agencies to say be vaccinated or you can't come back, pay $25,000 every 3 days. They know you wouldn't do it. So be tested every time at your expense because most public sector employees wouldn't do it. So are you seeking to reduce the public sector to an entity of incompetence, where you would replace competence with incompetent staff? So they don't know how to read books, they cannot focus on policy, whatever somebody at the top says, that's what they do. So there's an easier way to manipulate funds through a system. Is that what you're doing? Because it's a possibility. If you're going to willingly remove competence from your public sector, then you are going to replace it with incompetence. Is that your 50,000 job plan? Is that how you're creating a 50,000 jobs would work? Where competence leaves the public sector and incompetence replaces it? Like at a hospital, you're saying that the staff who are qualified, registered nurses and so on, are locked outside, but inside whoever will can work? Is that what you're going to do? So that the very few, for example, in the accounts department, they don't know accounting too well. So you could just bring something and say, okay, sign this, write this. That's the report. And then the Auditor General and so on, these offices are replaced by people or filled by people who are incompetent. So there's no tracking or tracing of your actions. And of course, hopefully it never happens again. APNU FC goes back in, and all they do is send you all home after $3 billion can't be accounted for, $10 million missing from here, $600 million missing from here, $500 million missing from here, and all you could tell people is go home, nothing happens. Theodore is saying it. They said when the registered nurses are outside, oh, the students will take over. Guess what? Students aren't vaccinated either. So nobody's going to take over. I heard today, which I hope doesn't happen, that if it gets bad, they will ask the relatives of the people, the patients, to come and take care of them. Now hold on. These parents have these patients have charts in the hospital that have to be read and written every day. You have to take their vitals and so on. You expect persons' relatives to fill those charts? Because I know you have a crisis on your hand if you keep locking these nurses out. So would you expect the people to go and have, when the doctors have to run the ward, and the doctors are locked outside, will a family member go around the ward too? What's your plan, Frank? If you put Cubans in the hospital, and the Cubans hardly know English, would the Cubans tell the people's family what to do and what medicines to administer to them in the morning? Would the family have to change the syringe, the saline bottles? Or is it saline in the USA? What's your plan? Or would you bring policemen inside to do that? Because I don't know what your plan is. The plan that's at work, the road that's ahead, is not favorable for this government. Because you're creating a system that is certainly going to fail. And it is failing. But your stiff-necked approach to this system, because you have to meet a quota for the world recognizing you, World Bank and so on. Remember, Guyana is not on the list to receive of this $4 billion aid or $2 billion grant that was given to poorer countries. So you want some money. So you're doing everything in power to qualify apparently to get the money. But this is not going to work. So let me just tell you the other aspect of this that I want to share with you. In our school system, given what I see from the GTU and what I'm hearing from teachers and parents, you do not have even 10% of our school population, which is about 30,000 students or more, vaccinated. Or going to put teachers and students going to be vaccinated. Can you only imagine what I'm saying to you? That in our education system, the 6th of September school reopens, according to Priya, and you do not have, I'm telling you this, even 10% of the teachers and students combined being vaccinated. Now, according to science, again, Priya Manichan and Frank Anthony, herd immunity is met when at least 70% of a population or more is immune to a disease. If you have 10% of a population vaccinated, as you say, how you get into herd immunity by September 6th? So you'll force teachers to, and you lock them out of the school too. And you think that that's going to work? What is likely to happen on the 6th of September is that the country will see a total collapse of the school system right at Priya's feet. Teachers will be locked out, students wouldn't be at school, mine wouldn't be there. I do not send my child to an environment of uncertainty. With Nicolette Henry, when she was adamant with patient 0, imagine when it started with just one patient, the lady who died. I made it clear on Facebook, remember? I started long ago that my children are not going to school. Nicolette Henry issued a response that parents are saying their children are not going to school, but the school remains open, and she's advising parents that they have to send children to school. I said, who are you talking to? You can't tell me I have to do anything. So this is not just PNC, just PPP here. APNU AFC Minister of Education, Nicolette Henry, I said plainly, you cannot tell me because you're not a scientist. And if there is, the pandemic was declared, patient 0 hit Guyana, I said a whole plane load of people came to this country, a plane full of people. And you can't find them, then involve the Lawrence and they all. So if you can't find the passengers who came with that plane with that woman, how you tell my child to go to school? Do you remember that? Some of you may not remember. But since then I told Nicholas Henry, my child is not going anywhere. Because the reasoning that for Nicholas Henry was that when the children begin to display symptoms, then you isolate them. And I said, if then the scientists said that the virus can be dormant for 2 to 14 days, how can you wait? But the person could be infectious. They can be infecting people within 2 to 14 days, but not showing any symptoms. How you could wait until the child is infected before you send them home when they were already interacting with so many people? I said my children are not going anywhere. Eventually, somebody in education made Nicolette catch her sense and say, okay, then schools are closed, and from March it was closed. Because I stood from then, and parents saw the broadcast and said, well, they're standing too. So I'm telling you that on the 6th of September, I'm not sending my child in an environment of uncertainty. Because your science has failed you to say that my child belongs in an environment where other children are not vaccinated. And if she's infected, it's because of me. Not my child. The road ahead is treacherous, Guyana. So you would find, if the policy is in place, students may be in the school compound with no teachers to teach them. What do you do then? Lock the teachers out and bring Spanish teachers to teach the whole school? What's your plan now? You bring people from the Philippines to teach our students? What would you do? Or the Venezuelans will come and teach them now? Because I need to know your plan. You have to let their plans fail. And I have to do the second part of this broadcast. You have to let their plans fail. I'm about to close. You have to let their plans fail. Because the only effective plan left for this government is civil unrest. Nothing else will work. Let that plan fail, because the systems that they're targeting will inevitably make them collapse. If you target education, if you target healthcare, if you force people in these sectors, and these sectors stand up to you all, the country is going to collapse. I'm just asking y'all to be patient, to watch the system collapse. Don't fight it. Because I remind you as I depart that if money is your focus, you are already a slave. If you see a government intending to let your loved ones, your friends, your countrymen and women die in a hospital just to make a point, I promise you that your money wouldn't save you when they get ready for you. When they really want to deal with you, money can't save you. Because these people, based on what they've shown you, they are capable of bringing a fresh batch of nurses and fire every last one of y'all. Then what would you do? If a government is prepared to let citizens lay in a hospital and die, can you imagine what they're prepared to do to you? Has it registered to you all yet? That a minister of health is prepared to let patients lay in a hospital in Linden, in Kokwani, wherever it is, understaffed, unattended. Today again there was an emergency and nobody was there to take care of the person. Do you understand what they're prepared to do to you when your time comes? Let their plan fail. Do not slip into civil unrest. You will lose, because you will lose the right to do anything after that in terms of your liberties. So what we have to do, or what we should do, I can advise you, is, if you want to be on the street, be on the street in numbers that speak to your position. Speak your position. We are against mandatory vaccination. Or if you're against vaccination, say that too. Say whatever it is. But maintain your position. The government must hear an echoing of your position. You are not going to be forced to be vaccinated. Nobody must force you. Once you do that, you are maintaining a focus. You're not shifting your position all around. Don't go and argue about you want shoes and hat. Maintain your position. If you maintain your focus, the government can't say that people are not saying the same thing. Maintain the focus. Parents, maintain the focus. My child is not going to be vaccinated with anything that's for emergency use, which means I cannot in any way at any time sue Pfizer or the government of Guyana if my child gets a heart issue. There's a new plot. You all don't know about it. Some of you may, but you don't know. I'm talking to people because of who I am. A father, only today or yesterday, is dead because he's the only person in his family who works. So he has to get money for his family. He took the vaccine and he died in Guyana. And guess what people are saying? Employers are now saying, don't talk about this. Frank Anthony isn't reporting these things because Guyana has got a very high rate of vaccinated deaths, of vaccine-related deaths. You know why? Because most Guyanese have already been infected and they don't know they're asymptomatic. Delta is here already. I told Frank Anthony a long time ago because science is demographics, movement, immigration. People move. And as long as airports are open and people are moving from the US to Guyana all the time, what do you think would happen? The Delta is going to hang around somewhere. Brazilian borders open, they pass through and into Georgia all the time. But because so many Guyanese have already been infected with COVID and didn't know it, you are already, to a great extent, immune to even the Delta variant. Just don't go acting crazy around the place because you want to catch something. Because I'm telling you all, wherever there's a respiratory tract issue, covering the tract keeps you, even in flu season you should do it. In a normal flu season, you cover your nostrils, you should be okay. Because spit and stuff don't come out and interact with people, so there's less infections in your house. But let the focus remain that you are against mandatory vaccination. You are against forced vaccination. Aryan Queen, I praise Yahweh for your strength. Somebody in the healthcare system said they're not bowing. That's what you need. Maintain your focus. If you lose focus and begin to argue about other things, the government wins because, again, the people don't even know what they want. The focus is that we're not going to be forced to take any vaccine. That's the focus. The focus is that if you are going... I don't watch Gavin Matthews. The focus is that if you're going to mandate the vaccine, you must have the statistics to support the mandate. You don't decide it'll be a mandate. And a mandate doesn't carry threats to it. That's an international violation of law. So what's happening is that people would have already contracted coronavirus and they're going to take vaccine because they're pressured. So that's why they're dying so much. But it's a hush-hush situation in Guyana. People keep it on the down low. But I'm not going to keep this quiet. We are not going to lose focus. I thank you for your time. I appreciate that you're here. I appreciate that most of you are focused. Let their system fail. Just be patient. It shall crumble. More than likely, on the 6th of September, it may all come crashing down because parents are not going to stand back and have this happen. And teachers would, I know teachers well. They are public servants. They've been tricked 3 times already. They tricked them with National Grade 6 exam in Nicollet Henry time. They tricked them with pre-management and C-Sec and stuff, get them to teach with grade 6 assessment. They got them to go and grade the papers and all that. Then, boom, you have to pay $25,000 as a teacher or you can't enter the school. I promise you, I'd be shocked if teachers are tricked again, because I know teachers pretty well, especially from Region 10. Y'all don't do that to them. You don't do that to teachers and think you get away with it. So they'll wait until school reopens to deal with you people. Focus. Be patient. This is not, remember that the World Bank has planned for you up until 2020. You can't fight as if tomorrow this battle will be over. The World Bank has you planned for you up until 2020 that 60% of the world's population must be vaccinated. Hello, if your enemies plan for you for 2020, you can't think the fight will end in 2015 or tomorrow. Think beyond that. Don't think about comfort right now. Think about the strategies of your enemy and let it fail. Keep your focus. Time is going to make you win. Goodbye, and thank you.